The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to you all and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the future of university social responsibility, a hugely important initiative whose time has come. My name is Tara Panchwani, Associate Director at the UK-India Business Council, and I will be co-chairing this session today along with my colleague Professor Daniel Rycroft from the University of East Anglia, who is the real force behind this USR program, along with our other esteemed colleague, Professor Prabhakar Rao of the University of Hyderabad. Together, the two of them have been instrumental in raising awareness of this crucial concept amongst key stakeholders in the UK-India corridor, and the UK IBC have only been too happy to help champion this worthwhile cause. Over the past 2 years, we have held several policy dialogues and roundtables in India, involving stakeholders from academia, industry, and government. The key outcomes of all these discussions have been encapsulated in our recently published guidebook titled USR From Dialogue to Implementation, which provides practical solutions and suggestions for organizations wanting to align themselves to its core principles and values. Our next step has been to work on setting up a USR consortium whose main objective will be to sustain the ethos, pedagogy, and practice of university social responsibility in India and beyond over the coming decades. Today's webinar focuses on laying the foundations of the USR consortium and, together with all your expert inputs, defining its mission, its vision, and plans for the future. We are fortunate to have a plethora of excellent speakers from various countries who have taken out their time to join us today, and we will be hearing briefly from all of them as we go around the virtual room. This will be followed by a Q&A session. And now for a bit of housekeeping, if I may. You will all be automatically placed on mute for the session. However, you will notice that there is a question box which you can use at any time to send in questions, and they will be taken up during the open discussion. If you could also please provide your name and organization, that would be really helpful. Any questions that we can't take, we will pass over to the speakers after the session. So don't worry if it's not answered due to lack of time. You'll also be glad to know that we're recording this session, which will then be placed on our website afterwards, and the link will be emailed to you all in case there's anything you might want to listen to again. And now I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities, who will share her experience of USR in her university and the impact it had on society around her. Dr. Mittal holds special acclaim for being the second woman Secretary General of the association in its 95 years of existence. Prior to joining AIU, she served for 3 decades at the University Grants Commission, India's apex regulatory body for higher education. A Fulbright scholar with a PhD in agricultural statistics from IARI New Delhi, she has a breadth of experience in higher education in policy planning and management. She is renowned for her innovative reforms, her expertise in institution building by blending the traditional with the modern, and her contributions in the empowerment of rural women. We are honored to have her with us today. So over to you, Dr. Mittal. Thank you. Dr. Mittal, you're on mute. Can I ask you to? Yes, please, if you may start, can you start again, please? Thank you.
Can you listen to me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for a very, very generous introduction. And thanks to Professor Prabhakar Rao for inviting me to this particular webinar. And university social responsibility is something which is very, very dear to my heart. Therefore, when I went to this university, I was telling that I'll be sharing my experiences as a Vice Chancellor of a rural women university. So when I joined as Vice Chancellor of this rural women university in 2008, I saw that already, I mean, although in ancient times, especially in India, the universities were supposed to be helping the society around the university. It was felt that once we establish a university, the society around the university will develop because of the university. But slowly we lost that concept, and there was a total disconnect between the university and the society. And it was to such a large effect that the people who were within the four walls of the university, they and the people who were outside the four walls of the university, they were both felt that they are totally a disjoint set. So a connection was to be built. So when I went to this university, I thought that first center which I should be establishing is Center for Society, University Interface and Research. Mostly the universities establish centers for industrial interface, industry linkages is looked into, but societal linkages were not looked into so far. So the first center was Center for University, Society Interface and Research, in which we did mainly three things. One was we held many sort of add-on courses, small courses, which were done in a 50-50 basis. 50-50 means 50% in the classroom and 50% in the community. For example, we had a small course, 1 credit course in microfinancing. We had a 1 credit course on integrated energy resource management or on folk medicine. So if I talk about folk medicine, we had a Ayurveda department with us. So our students used to go to the village women, asking them what type of cure they have for the humans as well as the cattle. So after knowing from the village women, who are basically a treasure house of the information, they used to document it, standardize it, because that information was there, but nobody was documenting it. And we really feared that this information will go away with that generation itself. So especially in the folk medicine program, in the folk medicine course, we tried to gather information from the villages, standardize it, and then document it. Similarly, in our microfinance course, the students used to go to the villages. They made small self-help groups of the village women. They told them how to take microcredit, how to take micro loan, how to open small accounts. So the village women who were even afraid to go to the bank, they could very easily, by the end of this course, go to the bank, take loans, and open even small businesses. For example, even buying a buffalo was a business for them. Opening a bangle store was a business for them. Opening a grocery shop was a business for them. And I cannot tell you how much it is sort of empowering for them, because suppose, there was a lady whose name was Bala. So we put Bala grocery shop. So she says, in my name also the shop can be there. She thought only men's can have the names, shops on their names. So these small things empowered them so much. So one was this, that we tried to empower the village women through our students. So our students were helping the village women to empower themselves through these small courses. And even in the existing courses, suppose there was BSc chemistry going on. In BSc chemistry, they do a lot of salt analysis in the labs. So we said, instead of salt analysis, also do the water analysis of the neighboring villages, also do the soil analysis of the neighboring villages, so that they know that which nutrient the soil is deficient in, or whether the water in their hand pumps, whether it is potable water or not. So these small things, history students were told to write the history of the villages. The education students were told to do some survey of the villages. Similarly, whatever discipline they were studying in, we tweaked the curriculum in a slight tweaking of the curriculum was there to ensure that the USR component, that the University Social Responsibility component, comes within the curriculum of the university. So that was first thing, that changing the curriculum either through add-on courses or through these tweaking of the existing courses. And we did see a lot of impact of this. Second thing which we did was that we invented small-time, inexpensive technologies for the villages. Now, villages like in Indian rural villages, I don't know whether the foreign university people who are here, they will understand it or not. But in Indian rural villages, there is something we call upla, that is cow dung cake. So cow dung cake is a necessity in the rural household because it is used as a fuel for the earthen ovens which is used in the houses. So this making of this cow dung cake, that is a very messy thing. They don't like making that cow dung cake. So we invented a machine in which you put cow dung husk, and out come the cow dung cakes in like a small soap types, like small soaps. So they were so happy that the university is thinking about us and we are making something for them. Similarly, because electricity is a problem in the rural household, so we devised a cycle and which was attached to a washing machine. So if electricity is not there, you keep on doing cycling and the clothes will be washed in the washing machine, because the energy was transferred from electricity to the cycle. So later we named it as fitness cum washing machine. So such small things we invented for them, which really boosted their ego, which eased their life. I mean, it was an easy life for them once they use these type of things. So using small time technologies or inventing small time technologies for them, which is not a rocket science, but very small inventions, but for the use of the villagers. And thirdly, what we did was we adopted the villages and we tried to help the villages again through various departments. For example, our legal department, they were opening the legal aid clinics in the villages so that the legal aid could be provided free of cost, especially to the village women. There's a lot of domestic violence is there, and many of them are not even aware of their legal rights. So legal aid clinics were there. Our Ayurveda people, they used to go and open these small medical camps so that the villagers could come and get their medicines. Similarly, the other departments also, each and every department, we try to help the villages in sort of doing their work in a much easier manner. Like we wanted to have a solar street light in the whole village. There was no solar street light. Now villagers had the money, but they didn't know whom to approach to get the solar street light fitted. So our university prepared a project. They went to the concerned departments of the government. They took the sort of concessions which are available, and then they helped in installing the solar street lights in the whole village. And when it was installed, they were very happy. Similarly, birth certificate, death certificate, computerization, internet of the village. So all these facilities, although the villagers had the money, they didn't want money from us, but they didn't know the technical know-how, how to use it. Similarly, what is also required is that in India, there are large number of government schemes for villages, but they are not aware of it. So our university used to help them in the preparation of the proposals for availing that all that money in an effective manner. So effective utilization of grant, that was also helped by the university. So these are the ways in which our university tried to help the society develop and help them to lead an easy life. And then we were also thinking of having, but by that time I came back, of having a community-based research. But one thing which we did was, we had a Indo-Israel pact in which they were doing vertical farming. So in that vertical farming, when we had established a demonstration center in the university, and the villagers were called to the demonstration center. They were shown how the vertical farming can be done. And once they established that type of a vertical farming in their own homes, in their own farms, they could see that they could earn at least 5 times more than the regular earning. So this type of work was done by our university. So when I came back to UGC, then we thought that this should be done at a larger level. They should be institutionalized. There should be some scheme on this. So then we did come out with a scheme called Fostering Social Responsibility, in which the funding was given by the UGC to the universities for establishing such type of centers. And then a larger avatar of that scheme was Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, UBA, which is being right now handled by IIT Delhi, in which for the whole country, now university social responsibility has become a talk of the town. Now the whole country is I mean, all the universities are entering into USR, and they are adopting the villages. They are trying to see that how their students can help the villagers, how they can have a community-based research. So this way, the universities in India are now into USR, into university social responsibility. But two things still are to be done. One is giving credits to the students for USR, because if the credits are not given to the students, they generally don't take interest in this. And second is giving recognition to the teachers for indulging in the activities of USR. So unless we give recognition to the teachers as well as the students, this USR will not flourish at the level at which we want it to flourish. So with that, because I just have 5 minutes with me, so with that, I'll just end my talk, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mittal, for that amazing set of examples. I mean, it's really heartening to hear the wonderful steps that you took in that particular community. And then not only that, you actually brought it back and, you know, made it go on a much larger scale through the UGC. And it's great to hear that so many Indian universities are getting behind USR. And as you rightly said, yes, you need to give credits to students and to teachers, and then that way it will flourish. And I'm sure Dan agrees with me. So I'll pass it on to Professor Dan Rycroft, who is the chair of the Indian Dialogue at the University of East Anglia and a co-pioneer and visionary for the USR program here at the UK-India corridor. So over to you, Dan, and he'll be speaking on the future of university social responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. And Professor Mittal, it's a great pleasure to hear your words and also to take inspiration from you. I think the more higher education institutions can commit to these kinds of rural social facets, then it's going to obviously help everybody in India realize the starting point, really, in terms of the education policy that came into place under the auspices of Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan back in the 1950s. So let us potentially reflect on that as we move forward. I wanted also to thank Tara and colleagues at the UK IBC for facilitating this discussion today. We're adopting this kind of more slimline roundtable format rather than a more expansive webinar, primarily to accommodate more viewpoints, more voices, because we're at the place now where we're shifting from our USR dialogues into a concerted action phase of USR implementation through the USR consortium, which is being supported by the UK IBC in association with Hyderabad University, University of East Anglia, and other universities. So it's a very timely engagement, and I'd like to welcome Amity University into this USR consortium group. And also today, following an earlier roundtable discussion with the UK IBC and the government of Telangana, I can confirm that we have additional support from the UK government to facilitate this program across different parts of India. And we also have interest to join the USR consortium from the Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University in Hyderabad. So we're seeing this gradual strengthening of the interplay between UK and India on this topic, with inputs coming from very prestigious universities. And with Professor Mittal's input, we can also potentially anticipate a broadening of this USR implementation work through the Association of Indian Universities, and we look forward to these kinds of discussions in future months. My task is to highlight the futures for USR. I'm wanting to address these futures both in the short term and the long term, and to also open up our thinking on USR to accommodate both of these timeframes, because they're different, but they also complement one another. In terms of longer term thinking, we can highlight the significance of the UN's Agenda 2030, which asks higher education universities to commit to participate in one way or another in terms of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Many universities across the world are doing very good work in these terms. Our USI guidebook came out kind of in marking the decade of action, which is 2020 to 2030. So we can continue to refer to that document in our engagement. Underpinning the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and we focus on partnership for development, for sustainable development, that's goal number 17 to a large extent. But underpinning all of those goals are the 5 principles. Okay, so the principles of a people-centric approach to education and development, a planetary engagement, that's the second one, the search for poverty reduction and prosperity, that's the third one, partnerships that procure a sustainable peace, that's the fourth one, and sustainable partnerships kind of for international cooperation overall, that's the 5th of the 5 principles that underpin the Agenda 2030. And I would like to see our USR consortium take up the challenge of addressing each of those 5 principles. And this can help us potentially then engage some of these longer term agendas. If we have these principles in mind, we can articulate our engagement, we can develop our cooperation, and we can implement our work in accordance with these 5 principles. So we may, in a sense, need some further catalyst for this kind of endeavor. It's one thing to kind of have these big concepts in mind, these guiding principles in mind, but it's also important to find a bridge. And this is where I think the USR consortium will help us actually, not only learn from one another and connect with one another, but also to find bridges between our current activities as individuals, as organizations, as people with sort of feet on the ground, so to speak. And also to then find a way in and through this new education policy. So I'm highlighting right now India's new education policy potentially as a way for us to help consolidate our engagement and give further traction to our particular shorter term programs of engagement on USR. So for those who are unfamiliar with it, the new education policy of the government of India came into play in mid-August on Independence Day. And it makes a very concerted attempt to reconnect the educational purpose with the founding principles of the Indian Constitution, which, as we know, came into play in the late 1940s. And with that, I think we can take some hope, because built into that Constitution is this idea of Indian secularism. Built into the Constitution is a very sort of key commitment to human rights and human dignity, as well as a recognition of the role that India's social minorities play in the evolution of the country. And by social minorities, we can refer to the so-called OBC communities, the Dalit and Adivasi communities as well. And we can also think of minorities within minorities in terms of those who have a lesser voice or less social recognition within those more marginal communities. And so we've heard a bit about, the rural-urban interplay. Let us also try and work through this potential to connect in accordance with the needs and interests of social minorities, not only in India, but also around the world. Let us also try and configure our partnership in such a way that it can embellish and enrich the social and environmental and economic impact agendas of the UK IBC, of our own universities, and of the India-UK intergovernmental cooperation as well. So those are my sort of broad aspirations for the USR consortium. I leave you with 1 or 2 additional thoughts. One is that USR activity can and should involve different kinds of academic cooperation and different kinds of academic approaches. So we also want to see input and creativity coming from our colleagues. And this is why, under the auspices of USR, we also have this emerging concept of ASR, which is academic social responsibility, where we can learn across disciplines and we can help engage this premise, which is again in this new education policy, of multidisciplinarity, of a much stronger interface between the STEM subjects and the arts and humanities and the social sciences. And we can learn from colleagues such as Rukmini Nair, who's come up with a very interesting idea of kind of liberal education in the arts field. So LEAF, the LEAF in relation to STEM, there's room for engagement there. There's also room for engagement on the particular facet of the new education policy, which emphasizes the commitment historically built into India's higher education system towards the more marginal languages, the oral literatures and oral cultures and so forth. Combining with people's interest in endangered languages, I think there's a lot of potential there for this USR consortium to really generate over the next few years considerable and impactful engagement on this question as to how and why there are these linguistic exclusions that potentially need to be addressed in our educational environments. And so the new education policy is highlighting the possible implementation of an IITI, an Indian Institute for Translation and Interpretation. And we can continue our conversation with a view to perhaps facilitating the work of such organizations like at Jadavpur University, the work of the Center for the Translation of Indian Literatures, or CENTIL. They're doing very good work in these kinds of domains. So my point is that there's really good work going on that, in a sense, needs to find sort of greater synergy with these high principles. And we see the USR Consortium as the mechanism for that combination and cooperation. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for outlining so elegantly the mission, vision, and the guiding principles of the soon-to-be-launched USR Consortium and its links with the ambitions and objectives of India's national education policy. And just highlighting that there are so many synergies. So together, by really focusing on that, we can amplify impact and achieve great things. So with that, I will now, I think Professor Rajashekar hasn't joined, if I'm not mistaken. So with that, I will pass it on to Professor Richard Harvey. He is the Academic Director of Internationalization at the University of East Anglia. And Professor Richard Harvey will be speaking on implementing university social responsibility, so the best practices around that. So over to you, Professor Harvey. Thank you.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Silence.
we can. Yes.
Yeah, good. Right. Super. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you. And it's a pleasure to talk at this conference for reasons that I will explain as I talk. I'm not quite sure what my speech was meant to be about, but I'm going to say some things that I hope are interesting. And the first thing I wanted to talk about really was to head off something. Is universities are corporations, right? So just as corporations have corporate social responsibility, then university social responsibility is just corporate social responsibility done by universities, isn't it? And I think the answer to that is no. Okay, and by which I mean I don't want to be scathing about corporate social responsibility. I think that's important, and I think things that you do that fall into that remit are valuable. In my own university, for example, during the COVID crisis, we turned over some of the labs to make PPE for various people because Britain had a shortage of PPE. Well, I think that's a good thing to do. But I think what's more interesting about USR is the observation that our products, if you like, are ideas and minds, and those ideas, I'm thinking there about research, and minds, which I'm thinking about our students, they have lifetimes of many generations. I think that's a powerful idea. And it's been knocking around for a while, hasn't it? I think Maimonides is generally credited with the idea that if you give a man a fish, it will assuage his hunger for a bit, but if you teach him to fish, you've given him a lifetime skill. And it's been picked up by various governments, and Dan mentioned the new education policy, which I'd also picked up thanks to him. The British government had a go at it as well, with citizenship classes, which are nowhere near as impressive as they sound. I think they're not always effective, these sorts of ideas, and they don't always hit home, do they? I mean, if you've ever been to an American high school and watched students pledge their allegiance to the Republic of the USA, I think you could lay bets on how many of those people really understand what they're pledging to. So obviously USR is more complicated because we have to come up with ideas which are sort of transcendent of political and social loyalties. Well, that might be fairly easy, but we also need to choose ideas which allow people to process ideas. Okay, so let me give you an example of that. Let's say we taught people about what an epidemic was and how it spreads. That would be a useful bit of knowledge. But not only is it a useful bit of knowledge in current times, it's useful if you're tweeting, because if you know about epidemiology, you know how bad news and bad ideas will spread properly, and you know how to stop it spread. Maybe Hofstadter's dimensions of culture. If you know Hofstadter's dimensions of culture, then I would argue you're less likely to be a racist, because you understand how different cultures work and interact. So those sorts of ideas, which some people have referred to as intellectual vaccines, you know, their protection against things, are the ones that we need to pick. So USR, I think, is all about the spread of ideas, either via the tuition of students or, if you like, the raw injection of ideas into society via research. And okay, so how do we implement that? And isn't it sort of carte blanche for universities to carry on doing what they always have been doing without paying any attention to anyone? I think, you know, that's not the case. And I think I could sort of pick up several examples. The one I'm sort of interested in is one called Aurora, which was a network of like-minded European universities. I should just add that there are several species of European networks. I mean, there are those that are essentially lobby groups for the wealthiest universities on the planet, mostly. You know, the Russell Group in the United Kingdom is an example of one of those. Then there are networking groups. They just meet people, Santander. And then there are mission groups. The mission groups are much more rarer, and that's because it's difficult to get people on mission across the different universities. There are two that come, There are two that come to mind. One is the Plus Alliance. That's King's College, Arizona State, and University of South Wales. Aurora is the one that I'm most familiar with, which includes us, the Free University of Amsterdam, Federico Douay in Napoli, Duisburg Essen, and various other things. And the Aurora mission could be summarized really is to ask not what society can do for universities, but what can universities do for society. So I'll give you two examples, quick ones. One project they have is to map all of our research into the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So they do a bibliometric analysis of all of our research, they map it into the SDGs, and that allows people who are not in the university sector to understand what we're doing and to interact with us. It's also very useful inside universities because it's commonplace for people, particularly in theoretical subjects like maths, to say, well, I have nothing to do with the SDGs. And that's not true at all. You know, that good mathematical thinking is the fundamental basis for a lot of approaches on SDGs. Their more recent project is to transform undergraduate and master's education to try and explicitly bring out the skill sets, and perhaps more importantly, I would say, the mindsets that ought to be useful to society. So let me pick one. You might want your students to be able to spot gaps. Well, that's a tricky thing to define, isn't it? But if you asked an educationalist, how will you know that your students can spot gaps? You would say, well, firstly, you have to define it, and then you have to measure it. So if you want your students to be creative, for example, then firstly, you need to come up with a tight definition of what creativity is, which is no easy job, but could be done. And then you have to measure it. And then you have to make sure that it's measured across, in our case, the 9 universities in the Aurora network. So that's what this project is designed to do. And the European Union has just put 10 million euro behind it, I think. I hope I've got that right. And it's a step, from their point of view, it's a step towards a pan-European university. I think from our point of view, it's a step towards trying to get universities to make real university social responsibility. And I think, therefore, that USR does have this different flavor to CSR. I don't think, I'm not saying CSR is a bad thing. I'm just saying I think because of it's got this minds and this ideas aspect to it, I think it's different. I don't think the difference is trivial. And I think universities have a special responsibility to, as a special, you know, they're known to be a special place to construct and propagate ideas. But I would wish those ideas to be focused and at least cognizant of the needs of society of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Harvey. That was actually really interesting, a different kind of take. I liked the idea of USR as an intellectual vaccine, you know, to spread ideas. And yes, I'm getting to grips with that. It sounds really good, and it's also really good to hear about the steps being taken to make European universities, you know, implement USR better. So thank you very much. I'm now actually going to skip I'm going to move back to Professor Rajashekhar. So Professor Rajashekhar is Pro-Vice Chancellor at the University of Hyderabad, and he will be speaking on how the University of Hyderabad has implemented university social responsibility with a few key examples. So thank you. Over to you, Professor Rajashekhar.
Yeah, very good afternoon. I'm happy to be part of this inaugural and would like to share some of the initiatives of University of Hyderabad for various USR activities. So we do conduct a lot of entrepreneurship awareness workshops to the students of various engineering colleges and management institutions, and we try to inculcate that entrepreneurial abilities and skills among the students that we have been doing for the past decade under Technology Business Incubator. Under Institute of Eminence scheme of University of Hyderabad, we have a lot of plans like community college. We would like to start community college under IOE towards university social responsibility. Our students from plant science department, they have adopted some areas for the sake of agricultural extension centers, and they go to those agricultural extension centers and educate the farmers about their research and their recent techniques to improve the yield and so on, and also educate them about sustainable agriculture practices. Then our Center for Distance and Virtual Learning, we have been doing a lot of programs. We are designing a lot of programs at very nominal price to educate the society and also to educate various stakeholders and to improve their skill set. It is mostly, we are not running it is for profit. It is only for as an extension activity we have been doing. A decade ago, we have started an initiative of adopting the entire municipality of this particular area, that is Serlingampalli, and we have started a program called Adult Literacy Program named Arohan, and we have educated about 60 to 70% of adults and were trained to write and read and write. And later, after some years again, there was a gap. Later, the students of our University of Hyderabad, they have formed a foundation called Akshara Foundation. They used to teach the children of the construction labor in and around University of Hyderabad, so that several students have got benefited out of it. And our School of Management Studies, University of Hyderabad, has adopted a village 40 kilometers away from Hyderabad, and there we are training the youth of that particular village for their employment and entrepreneurship. And we have a very active National Student Service program. Our NSS students have adopted half a dozen villages around the University of Hyderabad, and continuously they have been visiting those villages, creating awareness about health, hygiene and education. And they have been conducting a lot of camps in those villages with the help of our health center and other NGOs. Department of Anthropology, they have adopted 2-3 tribal villages, and they would be visiting yearly once as part of their internship program. For the last 30 years, they have been visiting 3 or 4 villages with students, and they stay there for a month, and they continuously study them, and this is a kind of ethnographic study. They keep on educating them and also empowering them to solve some of those issues, and with the interference of our students and participation of the local government, they are educating and they are trying to resolve some of the issues. During this COVID-19 pandemic, some of our faculty members formed as a study team, and they visited several villages, and they studied the intensity of pandemic, and also they created a lot of awareness among the public how to handle this crisis. And the University of Hyderabad has formed a team of students and faculty to create awareness about sustainable development goals, and we have been actively campaigning for SDGs within the university, and now we started moving towards other places in collaboration with NSS. Then we have Dalit and Adivasi Studies and the Center for Endangered Languages, and they also have been doing a lot of outreach activities. And our university recently started an initiative of donating used computers to government schools, where a lot of students coming from below poverty line and who are not having any access to computers, where there are no computers, our university, as first part of it, they have donated some computers to a government school, and we would like to do such kind of initiatives. And we have a lot of plans under Institute of Eminence, and we would like to very actively participate in university social responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajashekar, for those wonderful examples. It's really lovely to hear how much the University of Hyderabad is doing to support the community and the tribals and all the more vulnerable sections of society. So thank you so much for that. Moving on to our next speaker. Just bear with me. It is, I'm just looking at my list. Yes, now, so we have Professor Prasad, who is from the University of Hyderabad as well. And he will be speaking about managing social projects. And his title is, he's the director of the TIU and coordinator of research and development at University of Hyderabad. So Professor Prasad, over to you. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Prasad, you're probably on mute because we can't hear you.
You unmuted me.
Yes, now we can hear.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah. See, when you were asked to speak on this, how you are managing the projects, I just tried to get how many projects of social relevance we are handling in Gurinder. To my surprise, there are about 90 projects which are of social relevance in the university. Over the last 5 years or so, most of these projects are handled by 4 different schools: School of Social Sciences, School of Economics, School of Humanities, School of Management Studies, and of course, Professor Prabhakar has got 2 Erasmus projects and digital learning and e-learning initiatives. See, most of these projects are funded by Indian Council for Social Research and some of the banks and Ministry of Health, etc. I just try to divide these projects into 4 groups: projects that deal with education, projects that deal with health, community, and evaluation of various programs. If you see projects what we are handling our education is innovative practices and researches in the era of digital education, enhancing female entrepreneurship in India, evaluation of Mobile pilot project for augmenting farm productivity, the role of rural institutions in enabling and adapting the climate change when it comes to health. Family support and health status among the elderly population, gender dimensions and quality of life, to determine the risk factors of onset and progression of myopia and pre-myopia across the children of various age groups, and promote aging and health, a framework for action and policy formulation. And when it comes to community, institutions, livelihoods, changing practices, etc., encouraging the advisory and visual culture of the Dalit communities, a study of dependent Dalit communities, social and cultural perspectives, indigenous interventions for school children's impact on academic and performance of health. And we have another project on summer private education and education needs in the state of Assam.
Tara, let me just interrupt. Are you having trouble hearing the audio clearly?
Yes, I'm afraid I am, but I just thought I didn't want to interrupt Professor Prasad because
I don't think it's worth continuing because I'm finding it very hard to make out any of the speech, unfortunately.
Yes, me too. Professor Prasad, really sorry, but there is a bit of technical issue, I think, at your end, and we can't hear your audio properly. So maybe don't worry. I suggest that after the webinar, the key points that you mentioned, we will circulate so that other people will know and it wouldn't be lost. So we'll work with you on that. I apologize.
Definitely.
All right.
South
Thank you.
African.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we move on to our next speaker, who is Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, Group Vice Chancellor of Amity University, who I'm delighted to say have recently confirmed that they will join our USR consortium as founder members, which is a real honor. So thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for that. We're very pleased to have Amity on board. And Dr. Singh, just to quickly say, is a renowned scholar and academician in the area of international business and has 20 years of experience in institution building, teaching, consultancy, and research. So we're very pleased to have you here today. And Dr. Singh will be outlining the key priority areas for USR at Amity. So over to you, Dr. Singh. Thank you so much. Dr. Singh, you're muted. Sorry, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please start again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tara, and very warm welcome to all the participants, and many thanks to UK India Business Council and University of East Anglia, with whom we are doing many projects. And we got an opportunity to meet the Vice Chancellor, Professor David Richardson, on the previous occasion, and seeing our very distinguished colleagues from University of Hyderabad and many others from the other parts of the world. About Amity, I will just give you a glimpse that this was a dream of our founder, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, who, after spending many years in Europe, when he came back to India, he actually wanted to establish universities, schools, education institutions around the concept of the university social responsibility. So this concept is very close to the Amity group. Presently, Amity has got 11 universities, and we are the only education group in India which has got a distinction of having 11 universities in India and 16 foreign campuses abroad. But I think that what we have been able to concentrate is on the concept of giving education and creating the quality hub for across the globe. I will give you 5 initiatives which we have taken in the past, one at the international level and then few at the domestic level. I think the first project which Amity has done in the university social responsibility area was to provide meaningful education in Africa to thousands of African sisters and brothers. And I remember Dr. Kalam, who was the ex-president of India, going to Africa for the first time. And when he went to Africa, and for the first time he spoke in Addis Ababa, his first sentence was, "I'm going to give a gift to Africa, which every African will remember for centuries." And there was clapping, and everyone was thinking that he's going to announce a very liberal aid. And his second sentence was, "But I will not give a single dollar, but I will give you a gift of virtual education." And that was a time when internet was an issue, when there were challenges how to do virtual education in Africa. And he invited at that point of time all the leading European countries, all the leading universities of the world to come and do and become a part of the virtual learning process. And I remember very clearly that at Addis Ababa, most of the universities at that time, they said it is not possible. And when Dr. Kalam came back to India, he called up a lot of universities in India, and he said that this is my concept, that I want that we should be able to educate, we should be able to gift Africa the gift of education. And at that point of time, I think most of the universities, most of the scholars said it is very, very difficult. And as visionary people, they take steps. Dr. Kalam said that this is going to happen. And Ministry of External Affairs, Amity University, along with 1 or 2 other universities in India, we implemented this concept. And the initial thought of the Ministry of External Affairs was to educate 2,000 African students. And you'll be very happy to know that today, if you look at it, how many people became the part of the process, we see that about 80,000 African students had a benefit of taking that education. So that is the power of the social responsibility which the university can bring. So this was a very, very successful project. And now our Honorable Prime Minister, through the new education policy, has highlighted that India has to play a very, very important role in bringing up few concepts which can bring the word closer. And Amity is working day and night to realize the mission which our Honorable Prime Minister and Education Minister have kept for India. It's very heartening to note that new education policy is concentrating today on bringing up the issues which are related to SDGs. At Amity, we are taking a number of steps. I think one of the steps which we have taken is to provide 100% scholarships to girl students. We have got two projects called Amitasha and Atulasha. Through Amitasha, we are financing the needs of about 1,000 young girl students who become a part of our project. And right from their school education, providing them free books, giving them scholarships, to offering them the education in some of the top universities of the world, this project has been highly, highly successful. Similarly, we have got a project called Atulasha, where we are taking the underprivileged boy students under these schools, where the thousands of students who are underprivileged, they become a part of that process. We provide them scholarships, we provide them free clothes, we provide them facilities to go to some of the leading institutions. And sometimes I will send you details of the convocation when they graduate and when they speak and the kind of confidence they radiate. It's something on which we feel so proud. And I think that what we have done at Amity is that we have tried to bring the industry and educationists together. We are doing a number of projects with public sector like GAIL, with ONGC, with Samsung, with LG, those who are located very closer to our universities, and having a partnership with them. We are imparting free education and making the workforce empowered. So this is a third project, I think, that which Amity has been able to do by involving industry and then training people to ensure that they should get the meaning of their life. We have been able to train somewhere about 5,000 villagers to earn their living. And we feel so proud that as a university, we have been able to fulfill it. And thanks to the industry that they have been supporting it. Education 4.0 is a concept in which Amity has dedicated its quite a lot of resources. And we are integrating Education 4.0 with the Industry 4.0. We are perhaps amongst the very few universities of the world which have been able to bring 1,000 industry people together. So we have got an industry advisory board where about 1,000 people from the industry, they have come together, and we are so proud that UK-India Business Council is also a part of that advisory board. And at the same time, we have also been able to bring 1,000 top international academicians. So 1,000 people from the industry, 1,000 noted people from the academic world from across the world. They are coming together, and then they are trying to see that how we can meaningfully contribute in the area of SDG. Looking at the university social responsibility, Amity has also acquired another institution called Presidio Graduate School in San Francisco. This is a graduate school which is concentrating on sustainability. And this is the #1 school in sustainability management in the US. And we feel so proud that we have been able to align the goals of Presidio with the SDGs goal of India and of the education system. Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who spoke, I think that so rightly he said that if India has to grow, if Indian universities, they really want to do something extraordinary, they need to align themselves with the needs of the community. And many good universities, like University of Hyderabad, and many others, they are contributing towards it. And the goal of Amity is that we should be able to bring innovations. We should be able to concentrate on research. We have filed more than 1,400 patents in the last 3 years. More than 300 companies have been incorporated from the campus, all with a viewpoint that we should be able to do something for the community. We have been able to adopt 596 villages. I think one of the biggest contribution of Amity towards the community building is that wherever we open a university, wherever we are opening up the schools, we are adopting the villages and then trying to contribute, looking at that where we can contribute, how we can create employment, how we can, through virtual learning, and educate them. We are running evening schools. And the objective of Dr. Chauhan is Evening University of India through Amity. There are a number of scholarships we are offering. There are more than 100,000 scholarships which Amity has offered in the previous year to ensure that anyone who is in village, anyone who is poor, if they really want to be educated, we should be able to help. COVID-19 has thrown many challenges in front of us, but Amity, like many other universities, came in front and they said that we are going to help, we are going to contribute. So in most of our universities, we have been able to create hospitals. So we are helping the community that wherever we can contribute, we should be able to create hospitals through our campuses. We should be able to provide free ration, free food to the needy. So about 100,000 people get daily free food during the COVID-19 through Amity campuses across India. And that is what we are trying to do. But I think much above that, there are 6 areas which I would like to highlight where UK India Business Council and Amity, they can work together. And I think that one of the biggest areas will be going to be the e-education. That how we can bring a revolution in the field of education through virtual learning. Universities of tomorrow are going to be very different. Universities of tomorrow will not have huge infrastructures. And the COVID-19 like situation can come tomorrow also. So universities of tomorrow need to focus on how to give solution. If it happens again after 3 years, what will happen? I think that one of the areas where we are.
Yes, Dan. Okay. All right. Professor Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh, if I may cut you short, sorry, just because we have to move on. But as I said, after this session, we will circulate additional notes. So we can kind of put those kind of key priority areas in that as well. So not to worry, we won't lose it. Just to say, I was so delighted to hear all the examples that you mentioned. And there's so many, but I just want to say, one, the connection with industry is fantastic. That's what UKIBC really tries to do with universities and industry. And then all the great work that you did during COVID-19, creating the hospitals, providing free food. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And now I will move on to Professor Yingwei Chen from Asia University, Taiwan. He is the International College and Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and he will be speaking about university social responsibility that they have undertaken. So over to you, Professor Chen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me for this webinar, especially my old friend, Professor Pro Ro. You know, actually, Asia University and University of Hyderabad has been a good partner in more than one sense, in terms of student mobility, in terms of joint research, also in terms of social responsibility. So at the outset, I would like to say, actually, in Taiwan, USR has become a very important, essential component of any university, especially any university in Taiwan trying to seek any governmental fundings. The university need to prove, need to show their contribution in USR. And this came not as a surprise to you, because over the past decade, university in Taiwan has been very close to the industries. Okay, internship has become a required, curriculum at all the universities in Taiwan. So connection with the industry, also connection with the community. So we send students to the community for volunteer service. We send students overseas for volunteer service. So I think what I want to say is USR is not just important in Taiwan's university setting. It is also part of our DNA, So this is what I want to share with you. And Today, we always talk about the revitalization of community. Okay, how to help the community to boost their economy is also part of the USR project. Later on, I'm going to share with you 9 USR projects at Asia University. But at Asia University, in order to practice USR, we established the USR Center in the year 2018. In the year 2018, actually, the director of USR Center was supposed to deliver the talk, but because she is engaged somewhere else, so I just deliver the talk on behalf of our USR Center. And also, the purpose of the USR Center actually is threefold. Number one, the USR Center tried to revise, try to amend school regulations to promote USR by offering more incentive, by offering more bonus. Number two, we try very hard the so-called awareness raising. We try to raise the awareness of both teachers and students in terms of USR. Number three, we try to build up both local and global partnership. And I hope this webinar is a good chance for us to extend global partnership, like what we've been doing with University of Hyderabad. And USR Center use one indicator for self-evaluation, because we are also, participating in the so-called World University Ranking. Every year, we participate in QS ranking, in Times Higher Education ranking, in ARU ranking, in US News and World Report ranking. Because of this, so we use the so-called UN's SDGs, as the so-called indicator, so index to self-evaluate. This is one. And also, we try to promote to our social impact by two things: by organizing annual USR exposition. Okay, every year we have USR achievement project display to the public. Also, we publish annual report on USR. And I think, at Asia University, we have currently 9 projects in terms of USR. And I think I can say a little bit about these 9 projects.
Sorry, Professor Chen.
Actually, in
Professor Chen.
Yes?
Professor Chen, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but we have to move on. Can I also ask, everybody would love to hear about the 9 projects.
Okay.
So again, all this information, we can...
One minute, I will be finished.
Yeah.
Okay. The first 4 projects are the so-called traditional USR project, like Internet Addiction Prevention USR project. But we have 5 new projects, all using artificial intelligence as the tool, okay, for USR. So at Asia University, we are moving toward the so-called USR 2.0 or 4.0, okay, because every USR project we use new technologies for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chen. Would love to hear more, and it's great to hear that it's such a key part of your DNA at Taiwan. So it's brilliant to hear that. Thank you. We're now moving on to Professor Tilak Gamake from the University of Ruhana in Sri Lanka. He is a senior professor in limnology and water technology. Over to you, Professor Tilak. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And thank you very much for the opportunity given to me and take part in this event, and especially Professor Rao, who invited me to be a part of this consortium. And my effort is to give a brief introduction about the Sri Lankan universities, and then our national university higher education policy, and then how that framework, how we have built up in Sri Lanka in the universities to serve for the USR activities, and also the 2 examples that Center for University Industrial Collaboration and Student Community Service Volunteering Center, that bit of examples that I have gathered. First, that I want to again mention that I circulated some slides that you will get after the this session. Probably then I will base on my speech on that slides that I have given to the organizers. In Sri Lanka, basically that we have 15 state universities. All the state units are free education provided by universities, and then in addition to that there are some more than 15 private higher education institutes registered under the University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka. And those 15 universities, I am representing State University, which is the University of Rune, located in southern part of Sri Lanka. And then we have our national policy, national higher education policy. That is actually our national higher education policy is derived from the National Education Commission and then this important document. In this document, it says that in the policy number 35, create a better public image of higher education institutes and encourage them to be involved in projective of direct benefits to the society. That is the very close link I could identify in our national policy framework of Sri Lankan higher education. So now I am moving to that the other area, that what's the role of the university and how that can the social responsibility can be served or given to the community. And the roles and functions of the university are actually multiple, and they depend on the broader social context, internal dynamics of university. Then they decide that which way that we can provide, and also that where we can university place in the hierarchy, that how that efficiently social services can be provided. And in my slide that I have given 3 wheels in one of the slides, that explaining the education, research and outreach activities. In order to run these wheels optimally, that we have to align them, education part and then the research part and the outreach activities in the system. So that is one of the important concept that I really wanted to highlight here, that you will get that slide later. In this outreach and engagement activities are most important valued aspect of our university, because that is the only way that we can share our knowledge generated by the universities, and we can provide some solutions to thorny questions of the society. And the 2 examples that I have can identify is that the Center for University Industrial Collaboration, that's in our system, that we have center called Center for University Industrial Collaboration, where we provide professional education to industry and then customize our programs based on their feedback, and that we produce competent workforce based on the feedback. From the industry, that they provide what's the market demand, because in Sri Lanka we have a little gap. The number or the composition of the graduate we produce sometimes are not fitting to the job market exactly. So then there is a gap. So that feedback we normally get from the industry, and then professional funding support also we are getting from industry, and then industrial training and technology transfer also. That's a part of this center. And in return also that in addition to that, we do curriculum development together with industries. So these centers actually are a part of technology transfer office of the university. That's one thing. The other part is the student community service and volunteering center, which is actually can be considered as a corporate social responsibility in the category of that. And this center is run under the university career guidance units. Those structures are similar in all the state universities, because we have very similar structure in our state university sector in Sri Lanka. So then in these centers, normally intended to improve the contact and interaction of students and also the with the outside world, and we are getting some activities from the community, and then we release some group of students for those activities, for sometimes the beach cleaning programs and different kind of hospital cleaning and kind of different volunteering activities. That's the second part of that. And the area that my last slide that I really wanted to mention that what we are lacking is the monitoring mechanism, that we have a really enormous number of activities we conduct throughout the year, but we don't have a kind of evaluation system, monitoring system that's really what we need in our system. That's what we are looking forward to develop in future. With that, I conclude my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Tilak. That was really good, and really good to see how CSR and USR is working closely together through university and industry collaboration. Very good, very good. And we are now moving on to Dr. Andrew Philomen Raj from the Universidad Católica del Maule from Chile. Dr. Andrew, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. I would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity, very especially Professor Dr. Prabhakar Rao for the invitation, and also to Ms. Daxa for this great opportunity. On the outset, I would also like to thank Mr. Jorge Burgos, the Director General of the Outreach Activities at Universidad Católica del Maule, for his leadership on all our outreach programs, and also for supporting us for this presentation by providing us the data for this webinar. Dr. Ranjiv Ranjan joins me in this sharing in this webinar. And here goes my remarks on today's topic. It's about a brief on social responsibility of Universidad Católica del Maule. Social responsibility is best understood as the idea that organizations, institutions, and individuals have an obligation to act for the benefit of society as a whole, drawing on principles around ethics and social welfare. Social responsibility plays a critical role in our higher education sector, cementing the sector's place within society as a catalyst for innovation, progress, and social and economic development. A commitment to social responsibility means positioning ethics and social welfare as a core component of your institution's operations and mission. The way in which this manifest can differ dramatically between regions and universities. For instance, based on the institutions assessed in QS stars, it appears that the social responsibility and student volunteering is particularly prevalent in some regions, such as Latin America and India. The Catholic University of Maule is a center of diffusion and reflection that, in the light of the faith it professes, seeks the meaning of science and the humanities to put them at the service of the integral development of the human being. According to its general status, UCM is a public law corporation. As a higher education institution, UCM contributes to the evangelizing mission and assumes the challenges of the Maule region and Chile. This is expressed in its mission. We are a regional Catholic university committed to the development of the country through the comprehensive training of people, research and technology transfer, fostering critical thinking and a spirit of service. This mission drives the institutional efforts aiming to accomplish its mission, which is to be a Catholic university of excellence and being globalized, consistent with its guiding principles. In this way, UCM aspires to be a global university that strives to address the demands of the local community within the context of an ever-expanding global reality for the good of all community. The commitment to regional development manifested in its mission makes explicit the global dimension proposed in the vision. UCM is a regional university with global outreach, connected to the world through research networks, student and academic mobility, and international collaboration agreements that facilitate the transfer of technology and innovation applied to different local problems. At this point, I would like to highlight one of the main dimensions of the making of UCM, the outreach dimension. The strengthening of the outreach programs has allowed us to confirm our presence in the region through relevant activities to enhance heritage, promote local culture and art in developing actions, and in the creation of different centers guided by a responsibility to the community. With a longitudinal view, UCM has established the outreach program as an essential part of its work. Its main purpose, in line with the educational project, is to serve society and to find solutions to the different needs of the community. In turn, this context challenges the institution by making its actions more dynamic, seeking to respond to the needs of the environment and positioning itself as a relevant actor in the development of the Maule region. The outreach program is recognized as a constituent of the university's mission, a two-way challenge that aims and promotes teaching, management, and research. Responding to the areas of action defined by the institutional policy guidelines, the university community generates spaces for collaboration and dialogue within the community, achieving better performance in institutional work. These include free education for social and economic background community, research centers, community care, development of clinical fields to promote the health area, teaching practice centers, the Maule Scholarship Program, internationalization through the signing of agreements and student mobility, and artistic and cultural outreach. In recent years, priority has been given to signing agreements for the development of professional practices in different areas, mainly health, education, and social sciences. The institution, together with the regional government of Maule, develops the Maule 22 scholarship program, wherein during its first stage, it aims at training 100 medical specialists. In the second stage, it hopes to reach 300 doctors having different specialties. Regarding internationalization, the program has strengthened promoting student mobility, reaching 147 students mobilized by 2019, and received 47 foreign students at the university in the same period. In the artistic cultural field, the UCM permanently contributes with activities of this genre, such as film cycles, exhibitions, and seminars of different disciplines, among other instances that are recognized and expected by the community of Maule. There are also a series of educational activities, massive cultural events, and scientific promotional projects. Finally, the Wilkilemu Folklore Fair and the Children's and Young People's Book Fair take on special relevance, the latter having a history of more than a decade and being the only one in its segment held in the regions. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew. That was excellent and really good to hear how deeply USR is embedded in the ethos of UCM and how much UCM is doing for its community. That's brilliant. And we actually have your colleague, Dr. Ranjiva Ranjan, to also say a few more words. Just so I'll quickly pass on to you, Dr. Ranjiva, if you would like to quickly wrap up, and then we're going to move on to our Q&A. So thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ms. Tara. Well, to put everything, I mean, I was listening to all the discussions and put it in a more academic perspective. I would like to quote, two reports, recent reports on the social responsibility in higher education. The first report is by QS Stars regarding the rise of social responsibility in higher education and the trends which have been identified in these initiatives. So some of them are like emphasis on student volunteering, like as Professor Rajsekhar has mentioned, like providing opportunities for students to raise money or to volunteer their time, committing to their funds to support community projects, putting support in place for graduates to be able to find jobs in the local region, and ensuring to have policies and initiative in place around sustainability activities. Apart from this report, there is another in the report, World Report by 6th Global University Network for Innovation in Higher Education, which was published in 2017, which mentions that the social responsibility emerges as the need to reconsider the social relevance of universities in light of the encounter of the local with the global. So I'm basically, I'll try to highlight this global nature of the UCM in general, in particular, regarding priorities, demands, impacts, and knowledge needs in the context of globalization. The competitiveness of nations as the only way to achieve progress should be balanced with the inclusive social development and sustainability of the entire global population. So at the local level, the following components may be considered, like the identity of an institution should be strongly rooted in its local framework, partnering with the local organization as UCM is doing, engagement with other universities within the region, and the community need, which can be done by assessing of gaps and shortfalls of local community. So these are at the local level, and at the global level, as the UCM is practicing partnering with global organization and developing a curriculum, which Professor Dr. Mittar has also mentioned, that the curriculum has to be developed which features social responsibility, and the research has to be carried out with a global impact. And I believe the UCM has tried to reflect this local nature, which is a mixture of global as well as local nature, through its initiatives and programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjan. We also agree with this word global and local, bringing the best together. So that's really great to hear. And I should say a special thank you to both you and Dr. Andrew, because I know it's really early at your end and you have joined us today, in the early hours of the morning. So special thank you to both of you for that. And now I'm going to pass it to Dan, and Dan will take over the Q&A and the discussion section. So over to you, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tara. So I'm guessing that we have around 10-15 minutes.
Yes, I would say let's try to do 10, and if we run over, then 15, because we started 5 minutes late. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much to all the speakers. It's been a very enriching interaction so far. We have invited Dr. Bala Chandramohan from London to provide the initial discussion. Bala, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it'll probably come on the screen as well. Thank you, Dan, for this event, and also to Professor Rao. One of the things that comes to my mind in all the discussion so far is about the notion of stakeholders. Who are the people who are involved in, or who would be benefiting from, but also contributing to university social responsibility? Now, I've seen people mention about the students, about teachers, about the community of villages that have been adopted and people around them. So I was just trying to see if there are any other stakeholders, so the people who are interested in contributing to this that we have missed. One thing that comes to my mind is, if we take USR as an offshoot, or rather it's a very complex relationship with the idea of CSR, which is very common in the corporate world. So one point I would like for further discussion is, are we missing any more people? If we consider USR as a dominant model, how are we looking inward, so to speak, our own processes, our own motivations in terms of universities? This leads on to the second question, which is very simple. How do we link the different roles that universities play in terms of teaching, that is dissemination of knowledge, in terms of creation of knowledge, research, and also in terms of social responsibility or outreach. Different terms are used. Now the question is, the universities have different motivations to participate in some of the activities. So that is, say, for example, there are like the ranking systems in different parts of the world, but also more commonly with the Times Higher Education Supplement and QS. And there is also the Times Higher Education Supplement has got a ranking system based on USR, largely the use of SDGs as the metrics. And I'm just trying to see whether that would be something which the universities that we are talking about are willing to participate. But this is different from the rankings that the THE and the Times Education gives. So if there is a ranking system that's already available, do we go for it? The third and the final point that I would like to discuss is what is the role of voluntary organizations, the private sector, so to speak, in ESR, not necessarily in terms of providing input into the courses, which would need them, but also in a much larger historical role that could play, particularly if you take the voluntary sector. There's a lot of knowledge. It's not only the knowledge the country, the universities give to the society, but also they can benefit from the knowledge that is embedded in the society. I'm thinking about sort of when we talk about medicine, there's a lot of manuscripts. There's a lot of on palm leaves, etc., which the Wellcome Foundation is also trying to mine to get some idea about what medicines would work, etc. So the 3 points that I'd like to look at for discussion are these, that we look at how we contribute, who are our other stakeholders in the process, and how do we relate to them. And the second question is about ranking. Should we have a ranking? Should we use the THE's ranking? And the third one is, how do we leverage the knowledge of civilization, so to speak, in this, which would again link it to the taking it to the international sphere, so to speak, or looking at the whole world as one family, which is very often quoted in India as Vasudeva Kutumbakam, or in Tamil, in Sangam literature, you have poems which talk about similar universal aspirations. I'll stop here and give time for everybody to discuss. So I will also contribute to this, and in terms of actual practical planning of the ESR, I will come back to this after the discussion, maybe outside. I was a consultant to the Commonwealth Secretariat to develop a consortium of universities for youth service or youth knowledge courses. So some of that expertise I'm able to pass on to the one. So we'll stop here and then let's.
Thanks, Bala. We can carry on this conversation. I mean, time is obviously limited now, but you've opened up many other important areas for us all to engage. So I think, we can certainly try to create another opportunity to go into this in more depth, especially once we've had a chance to digest the various inputs that people have generated today. Dr. Gurinder Singh, are you still there? Dr. Mittal, can I come to you just to respond to Bala's question around this idea of sort of upscaling the social to move perhaps a little bit away singularly from the local into other areas of the so-called human family, and to ask whether you've had a chance to reflect on this ethos of sort of a common humanity as it pertains to Indian philosophy or the education policy in India, which attempts to foreground India's collective knowledge base in terms of a new world leadership. This concept of Vishwa Guru is quite central. So please just spend a couple of moments reflecting on that, and then we'll come to one or two questions from the floor, and then we'll have to close.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, first for clarifying the question, because I couldn't understand or hear anything when Bala was speaking. So when you talk of India as a Vishwa Guru, and when we talk of ancient Indian knowledge systems, we used to say that there should be an education in, we used to call it 64 kalas, 64 art forms. So in that 64 kalas, it was not only music, dance and all, it was also all the disciplines, maybe it is sciences, engineering, medicine, including value education. So the sole purpose of education was to prepare a good human being, to prepare a good citizen, including the value education in terms of honesty, love, compassion, integrity, say humbleness. So if you are very, very educated, but you don't even have basic etiquettes, we cannot call you educated. So therefore, value education was of primary importance to the Indian system. And therefore, when we talk of university social responsibility, one aspect is that yes, the society around the university should develop because of the university. But the second aspect is that the university is producing good human beings, the good human beings who are having the value system imbibed in them. So that is really, I mean, that is in any case the function of the universities. And the new education policy, National Education Policy 2020, which has come, it is giving a lot of importance to these aspects, that the higher education or even the school education should imbibe cultural values, our ancient culture, our value system should be imbibed in the students, and they should come out as a good human being and a good citizens of India. So that is the primary responsibility of the universities, and that will constitute university social responsibility.
Thank you very much, Professor. And I think that also answered the question that was coming through from Mohammed in Hyderabad, who was asking about the role of the MHRD and the UGC in terms of structuring future engagements with USR. So I think you've covered some important points there. We have a question from Indranil, which I will want to put to you, Professor Rao, concerning the role of universities in preserving and promoting endangered languages. Please come to this point, sir, and offer your final conclusions at the end of your comments.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear.
Yeah. Okay. University social responsibility varies from discipline to discipline. So if you take the languages, Indian language or indigenous languages and cultures of any country, the university social responsibility is to protect and promote these languages and try to encourage education in these languages. So one of the objectives of university social responsibility in humanities is to promote indigenous languages in that, at least to start with, in that particular region where the university is located. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's very clear engagement there. I think the point around linguistic diversity merits our continued thought and engagement across this consortium. I think there's a lot of scope there to learn from various organizations such as the Sahitya Academy, which has provided some good starting points for this engagement with endangered and oral literatures. Okay, Professor Rao, would you like to please conclude this session for us?
Thank you, Dan. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers for their brief, but at the same time, a comprehensive presentation of their views, experience in their respective countries on university social responsibility. In my view, university social responsibility is not a static concept. It is a dynamic concept in the sense that depending upon the development of the society, advancement of technology, the university social responsibility concept is also diversified itself. So for example, now we have to include in the university social responsibility the climate change, environmental issues, for example. And if you come to technology side, we have to include the impact of digital technologies on humans and society. This is also now university social responsibility. So the concepts we have to actually, in this consortium, we are expanding the concept of university social responsibility. If the concept, if we put roughly earlier was confined to the collaboration between industry and the university, now the concept itself is we are looking at in an expanded way, by including
the new dimensions that comes from the development of science and technology. For example, just now, Professor Chen has mentioned that Asia University has 5 projects on artificial intelligence and social responsibility. So like that, the concepts keep on expanding. So that is number 1. And number 2, that the concept is also, it is disciplinary based, because the social responsibility varies from discipline to discipline. If we put it sciences, humanities, and social sciences, we have different social responsibilities that also we have to take into consideration. And the third point that I would like to mention here is that when we started this consortium, we thought that it is basically confined to UK and Indian universities. But later, we have decided, we have proposed rather, that this should not be consigned to the universities from UK and India. It has to be expanded. We have to take as many as universities as possible into this consortium to have a global representation, so that we can share the experience on university social responsibility. So that's why what I think that there are issues that are concerned globally with regard to the university social responsibility. For example, you see multilingualism, or community engagement, or industry and academia relationship. All these are common things that you will find in every country. But there are country-specific issues also, which are, as just Professor Pankaj Mittal has mentioned, which are rooted in the social ethos of the education. Social ethos of the education of the social means cultural ethos of that particular country. So we have to divide into 2 parts our activity of the consortium. One is that are common to all, another one is country specific. Whatever common to all, the experience has to be shared, so that we can enrich with that experience and implement whatever is possible in the respective countries, taking example from other countries. So I would like to propose, if Association of Indian Universities comes forward, we can have a webinar with the major Indian universities on the new education policy and social responsibility, university social responsibility. Because what I heard, that whatever the MHRD has planned to have webinars on different aspects of NEP 2020, there is no mentioning about university social responsibility in the webinars. So now we should have a special webinar on university social responsibility and the NEP 2020. I think that would help at least some of the Indian universities to start with, to go on university social responsibility. So with these few words, if I conclude this, and also now we can say that we have formally launched this consortium. It is a small giant step towards expansion of this consortium, and we keep on meeting regularly to share our experience through our webinars, or if after 1 year, if everything goes well, maybe physically also we can meet and discuss, share the experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, Professor Rao. And Professor Mittal, any just very final reflections on Professor Rao's suggestion?
I feel that university social responsibility is something which is inevitable, which every university should be doing. And right now, some universities are doing, not all are doing. And as I mentioned in my talk, there are issues with regard to giving credits to the students, giving some sort of gratification to the teachers also, because of which it is not picking up. So the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, which I was talking about, which is being run by IIT Delhi, that is largely university social responsibility at a mega scale. But then that is more focused on the technological issue, that how the technology transfer can be there, how the technology can be customized for the use of the rural community. But in addition to the technical aspects, we have to see the social aspects also. So we should be doing, as suggested by Professor Rao, we should be doing not one but multiple webinars on university social responsibility. And then in addition to the universities, we should also involve some NGOs in this consortium, I feel. Because one NGO was Priya, with which we work. They are doing a lot of work in university social responsibility. Rather, they are even having some courses. Online courses are also there on university social responsibility. We should be engaging with them. And then these, actually, the owner, founder of the Priya, Professor Rajesh Tandon, he is the UNESCO chair of university social responsibility, along with Dr. Badhal. So I think we should be associating them also with this consortium, and it will be more fruitful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. These are very, very important suggestions, which we will digest fully. And just before briefly handing back to Tara, let me just say that the USR Consortium has a very specific primary objective in mind when we first convene as a group, which is not only to respond to these points made today, but also to develop ways forward for a USR charter, which can be drawn up and then used as the basis for our ongoing implementation and engagement works. So this is where we're heading, and as we mentioned earlier, Tara Panjwani, the UK IBC, will be, I think, keen to continue working with us on those points. So thank you again, everybody, from my side. Over to you, Tara.
Thank you. Just a quick wrap up. So thank you to all the excellent speakers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the brilliant points that you raised. There is so much to discuss. We did not have enough time to cover everything. So don't worry, this is going to be the first of many of these. And since we are officially launching the consortium, Dr. Rao and Daniel and Dan, we will from now on, make a plan of action for the USR consortium and share that with you. And yes, UK IBC will be a key part of it. And we can have follow-up webinars on this topic, focusing on the national education policy, USR, and industry engagement. So that's a very key area, and that's where UK IBC can contribute and hopefully try to bring it all together, be the bridge for this. So that would be our role, and we will be happy to facilitate. So thanks again, everybody, and we will be in touch soon. See you soon. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.